Last week I took some time to talk about hospitality. I want you to take a listen, and then afterwards we'll talk about how we can apply that in a very simple way to all of our brands. I'm standing here in our conference room container here in Lexington in our warehouse. It is a beautiful, amazing day outside. It's 80 degrees. You can see some sunlight coming on through our garage door. We want to give you a little sunlight and talk a little hospitality today. Specifically, I want to talk about the psychology of hospitality. What is it that we are trying to connect with a guest whenever they walk through the door? How do we show hospitality, and how do they remember that hospitality in a positive light? It's interesting that our memories are formed by emotions that we have connected to an event or a space or a person. And so what we want to do when guests come through our space, whether to eat, whether to hang out, whether to play a game, whatever they're doing, we want to connect with them on a deeper level than just an exterior experience, a physical experience. We want to connect with them in an emotional way, in a feelings way. It is fascinating that when we have a positive emotion connected with an event or person, that we remember that event or person in a positive light. And the inverse is true as well. So if we have a negative experience and a negative emotion connected with an event or a person or space, then we're going to remember that in a negative way. What's interesting about that is that we can go for an hour having a wonderful, fascinating, a brilliant experience, and we have 2 minutes where it's negative at the end, and we're going to remember that experience in a negative way. And I'll get to that in just a minute. In terms of hospitality, there are 2 studies that have been done that I think are pretty important and pretty interesting in light of hospitality and what's going on with the psychology behind it. The first, I'm going to try to write on this whiteboard. My handwriting is not very good, and I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it. We're still playing around, by the way, with the format of this video and how we're going to do it. We're trying to get better here and there, but please be patient with us. Anyway, the first study that I wanted to point you to is a study that was done by Loyola University a few years ago, where they asked students to evaluate 16 professors who lectured during their course. Students had the option of evaluating each professor concurrently during the course or waiting until the course ended. The scores, this is what's interesting about this, and this is all about first impressions. Let me just write this up here. First impressions. Hopefully you can read that. The scores professors received on early evaluations were markedly similar to the scores they received on evaluations made after the course ended. And students rarely changed their minds about professors. Only 3% of evaluations were revised before the evaluations were finalized. In other words, what's fascinating is that the few minutes at the very beginning of this class with this teacher or this professor, there was judgment being made, a first impression being formed, and that impression did not change the whole course of the semester with the majority of the students who did this survey. So first impressions clearly are a big deal. When they walk through the door, any guest, we need to make eye contact. That's why we stress these things so much. Act cheerful, act glad to see them. Have the front door clean, the doormat, the floor, the visual, all of the aesthetics, all of those things matter so much for whenever they walk through that door in their first impression, because the rest of their experience is going to be in some way judged by that first experience, that first impression. The second thing that I want to mention is a study done in this book called Thinking Fast and Slow. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. It's a thick one. It's a long read, but it's really an important read. I want to talk to you about, from this second study, what last impressions are. Are not so much what they are, but how they affect the customer or guest as they leave and how they affect their memory. This is where we really have a lasting emotional experience that happens, and we have an ability to leave them in a very positive way. They talk about 2 different selves, the experiencing self experiencing self and the remembering self. The experiencing self is the one who actually experiences. This is you going through the experience, eating the salad, eating the frozen yogurt, playing the game. The remembering self is how you judge that experience. This is the emotional connection that I was talking about, and how that emotional connection happens, whether it's positive or negative, is how you're going to think about that experience as a whole. This experience here can be an hour, and this emotional connection or some kind of feeling can happen in 30 seconds. So there were two experiments done that helped solidify what they were thinking was happening with these different selves and how we remember and how we judge an activity or experience. One was with colonoscopies. Apparently colonoscopies used to be very painful. And they did all of these people that came through and did colonoscopies, they did some of them for 10 minutes, some of them for 20 minutes. The 10-minute one, they were in pain the whole time, and then abruptly it just stops. The 20-minute, they were in pain up and down. It was bad. They had somebody asking every 60 seconds how much pain it was on a scale of 1 to 10, and it was up and down. And then like at minute 18, it was really high, but then the last 2 minutes or the last minute, that pain decreased. They decreased the pain of it. And then they asked all the participants about judging how painful it was. What's fascinating is the ones that were doing it for 10 minutes rated it as far more painful and would say that it was a horrible experience, whereas the ones that went for 20 minutes, because of that last 2 minutes not being as painful, rated it not as bad. They had a better memory of that colonoscopy, even though they were in pain twice as long as the first group. It's fascinating. Another study they did was with cold water. They had people stick their hand. I thought about doing this, but I don't want to stick my hand in cold water for no reason. But they had people stick their hand in cold water, and there were two different sets. One was for 60 seconds. One was for 90 seconds. And then they were supposed to do it a third time. So the first time they were rating their pain, and it was really, really cold. And then the second time, they were in it for 90 seconds. And the last 30 seconds, they put a little bit warmer water in there to warm it up just 1 degree warmer for 30 seconds. And then they asked them, which one would you want to do the next time? And 80% chose the 90 seconds of having their hand in this cold water. They chose 30 more seconds of pain because they remember the last 30 seconds being more pleasant than the first option, where it was just 60 seconds of pure pain. Well, what that shows us what that tells us is that how people remember things connect and engage on a deeper emotional level. You can say to a customer, to a guest, well, how did you have such a bad experience? We may be totally perplexed, and we may not understand. We get a bad review, or we get a bad email, or we get a customer that's just complaining, and we think, their whole experience, their whole time they were here, I was nice to them, these people talked to them, they had this wonderful game, they had this wonderful salad. How did they have such a bad experience? Well, the reason is because at some point on an emotional level, they had a negative feeling about something going on in the activity that they were doing. So from these two studies, consider how people remember as they leave the experience that we're giving them. As customers, as guests leave what we're doing, consider what's going on in their head. Consider the last time you were somewhere and you judged that experience, either positive or negative. Let me give you an example. When I was young, I ate a burger. I remember eating a burger, fries, and milkshake from a place called Rally's. I don't even know if they're around anymore. I remember the shake being wonderful, the burger being great, the fries being wonderful. But at some point afterwards, right after that meal, I got sick, whether it be food poisoning, I don't know. and I, hurled everything in my stomach. Maybe TMI there. Anyway, I have never eaten another Rally's burger. And they were around when I was growing up. Never ate another Rally's burger. Does that mean that burger, that shake, that fry was the worst tasting thing? That I didn't enjoy that while I was eating it? No, I did the whole time I was eating it. But afterwards, because I threw it all up, I now thought of Rally's as the most disgusting thing that I could put in my mouth. Now let's think about this from a positive perspective in hospitality. What if the last experience is overwhelmingly positive? Think about the things you can overcome during a bad situation if the last experience is positive. If the first impression that we give is also positive, and they leave and that's positive, then they're going to have a memory that's going to be connecting them to a positive emotion. So what's the takeaway? Well, two very simple things. Start every experience on a high note and send every guest away feeling fabulous. Oh, and you can wear this wonderful beanie that I just got. What do y'all think? Let me know. The bee's right there. I've been waiting on this for a while. It's getting warmer. I'm going to Rochester this week, so I plan to wear it whenever I do interviews. Y'all have a good week.